Hey, welcome to Lab, the podcast. So honored today to share some time with producer Camille Kampouris. Camille is a native of Washington, D.C., and a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Catholic University. After she graduated college, headed off to New York City to pursue a career in the performing arts and worked mainly in comedy for the next 5 years, creating and honing an array of characters. In 1985, she actually auditioned for the Muppets, and after a brief but intense training, became a lead Muppeteer with Jim Henson's iconic Muppets, where she worked for 14 years before Sesame Street, performing 10 seasons until she retired in 1998. Went on in 2002 to found Kairos Journal with her husband Emmanuel, and also Bible Mesh, an online theological training site. And then in 2018, her and her husband took their first steps into producing, which led them to today's conversation and the production of the film Bonhoeffer. Camille, thanks for sharing some time with us. It's an honor.
It's great to be here, Zach. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's I just mentioned I literally just screened the film, and it's beautiful and it's thoughtful, it's engaging, it's everything that we hope a film like this would deliver, and you did such a beautiful job. So thank you and congratulations. I'm curious from your side, when I was reading your bio, that you spent so much of your life in the performing arts and on the performance side, and now you are in the producer's chair. How has that transition been for you? Just personally, I'm curious.
Well, first of all, it was completely by accident. So it wasn't like I decided, oh, it's time to transition to being a producer. I retired from Muppets probably around 1998. And around 92, I got married. And I thought, the Lord, everything's for a season. And this has been my season of performing. I performed since I was very young. And um, and so then I went on and became a wife. I met my husband in church. He was a businessman and a widower. And so our paths would never have crossed. He was an industrialist. He was in, manufacturing, and he was a CEO of a company that was all over the world. And I was on Sesame Street. So we first, when we both retired, he retired in 2000, we decided to spend our time and energy teaching people the word. We started with a magazine, and this was just geared to pastors to help them, uh, to encourage them to use the scriptures in the public square. And then we started Bible Mesh, which is a training site. So we had not. There was no thinking about me going back into show business and doing, producing. But in 2010, we live in New York. We read a book by Eric Metaxas. It's a book on a biography on Bonhoeffer, and he went to we all went to the same church at that time. We don't anymore, but occasionally he would say, "Well, isn't anyone going to do a movie about this?" And then my husband and I went off and decided, um, why don't we try, since no one was doing a movie and we just loved this biography. And I liked Bonhoeffer anyway. I had read his things, but I never read a biography about him. And the whole part about going to Harlem, I didn't know that part. And really that's where his faith came alive. And even to have Harlem in a World War II picture is unique. So my husband and I just thought to ourselves, how hard could it be to get a script? I mean, I worked in television and we popped scripts out every week. So I thought, oh, maybe a year and then maybe another year to do the movie. So that's how we entered producing, not naively, not knowing anything. And actually, it took us 7 years to get a script. And so,
Wow.
what happened after the first year or two, and there are many difficulties, we went through three screenwriters, script doctors, that work on the script, and directors. Three directors had input in the script. We had consultants, people that taught screenwriting help. It was quite an ordeal, quite a process. But after about the first year, we really saw that this was not just this wonderful thing we thought we would do for God and, whip it off and then turn it over to somebody. We really thought this was a real calling for us. Um, we realized as we were walking this process, it's very complicated to do a movie. It's nothing like television, And especially if you're an independent filmmaker, you're not working with a studio that can provide for you the, sets and the scenic designer and the director of photography and all those things that we had to eventually find. But yes, so 7 years later, we had a script, and now it's 2000. It's late 2019, and we were all getting ready to go. And within 4 months, March of 2020, the world completely changed, and suddenly theaters are shutting down all over the world, and production is stopping. So then we really just thought, is God telling us to just give this project up? So that's a long-winded answer as to how we got into producing. We didn't think about let's produce a movie. It was much more, just a passing thought to do something nice, and then pass it on to somebody. So,
Yeah.
and then after we did get the script, it took another 5 years, to do the movie. It's taken 12
Yeah.
to get to this point. So,
Well, I mean, first, I'm grateful that you followed your intuition. I think from our side and all the time that we spend in conversations about the power of imagination and the importance of beauty and the arts, you think about Lewis and slipping past the watchful dragons and what you've been able to do by introducing a character by giving us a film that I'll take my family to. I think many families will go see it because it's a historical piece, and we may not know necessarily the depth of Bonhoeffer's story, but film presents this powerful opportunity for you to put this film that really has beauty and goodness and truth. It's all in there. And this is the power of art. So you're in a unique position as a producer to choose a story. I'm curious if you can take us back. Was there a conversation around a table or a night for you and your husband that you can go back to and go, that was the night that we decided, because there's so much cost involved. I mean, personally, just 7 years, the time, all of the investment that you make personally, was there a conversation where you made the decision and said, no, this is a project that is worth the advancing and the investment that it's going to take to shepherd it? And if so, what was it about Bonhoeffer's story that had come through Metaxas's work that made you think, yeah, now is the time and this is the story and it's worth it?
um, at the very beginning, we read his book and we just thought, we had seen one of our great heroes was Wilberforce, and we had seen the Amazing Grace movie. And we had felt, gosh, that really gutted a lot of the faith. And that's kind of what Hollywood tends to do. They tend to gut the faith. And here we had this website, Bible mission training people in the word, and which was our passion. So we thought, Bonhoeffer is such an amazing role model, he was all in for the Lord, and he served the Lord no matter the cost. And of course, he paid the ultimate cost. So I think the first decision was just to do it. But as it got harder and harder, and we were really prayerful about this every step of the way, we just really began to have these decisions where, discussions where we said, is this really what we're supposed to do? We really need to be certain, because it's very difficult. And we had to raise the money, which was very hard. And then during COVID, some people took their money out. So then, because, theaters are closed, and didn't seem like a good investment. And then we had to re-raise the money. So I would say those discussions happen often at every huge obstacle where, for instance, we just couldn't get a script. And then I remember the last time we were working with the director, and the director said, I think you need to start all over. This was 6 years into, or about 5.5 years into it. And we just thought, start all. Oh my gosh, how do we even find a screenwriter? That's in and of itself is not easy to find one that wants to write a movie about a man of faith, a historical, drama, a World War II picture. There's a lot of elements that people were saying, no, I don't want to do, that. Um, so those questions we kept checking with the Lord. They happened a lot. I mean, for instance, when she said start all over, it's a very well-known director in Europe, and she said start all over. We said, you know what, let's just pray through the weekend. Um, we were introduced to Todd Kormanicki, who is a Christian screenwriter. He wrote the film Sully, and he years ago produced the movie Elf, and he lives in New York. And so someone got him the script, and we just asked his opinion, thinking, surely this director doesn't mean we have to start all over. We were convinced that God would show us that the script just needed a polish. So anyway, Todd Kominicki read it, met with us, and said, yeah, I think you need to start all over.
Wow.
And so at that point, that was a real, punch to the gut. It was so we had spent a lot of money and time and just thought, it's too many obstacles. Maybe this is not, we've missed God. So that was a big, and then we asked Todd to write it and he said, no, he wasn't available. And then we asked again, we kept saying, well, and then we played the ultimate card and we said, Todd, you have to pray about it. You can't just tell us no. So we tried manipulating him with God. So he went home and he and his wife talked about it. And, about a week later, he said, look, I can only, these are my, this is the deal. Like, I'm only free in March. This was 5 months from the day we were talking. And we said, well, wait. And he said, and I have a window because he writes in, windows sort of. He's an A-list Hollywood writer. And he said, this is my fee. I've lowered it, but this isn't my fee. I don't think you can afford it because, he is A-list Hollywood. And we said, well, give us a chance to see if we can raise it. But anyway, he ended up being and then we felt, okay, the Lord is giving us a green light again. And then COVID hit, same discussion around the table. This is maybe mad to think maybe we were supposed to do a play. I don't know. At this point, we were lost. We were thinking maybe it's got to be a TV series. And we just, again, it's been a wonderful 12 years of surrendering and just learning to, we thought, because we were not immature Christians, we were what we thought pretty mature believers when we started. But there's so many levels of surrendering to God and depending on God. And so this was a deeper level of saying, okay, Lord, you gave us the green light. Then when COVID hit, we just waited. We just said, we're just going to wait and see what God does. We waited a year because it wasn't until 2021 that we picked it up again. And actually, Todd, by that time, had written the script and was with us. He was on our team. And we would say, Todd, should we raise money? Should we re-raise the money that was taken out? And he said, no, it's not time yet. And then in the summer of 2021, when things were opening up, he said, I think it's time. And we prayed about it. And from that to 2022, when we were going to start filming, was kind of like a sprint. New people came forward to invest. It was amazing. God just brought wonderful people to come alongside of us to help with the finances. But and then once again, we were ready to go, and we had picked Czech Republic as a place to film, which is beautiful. And we needed the pre-war architecture, because we weren't going to probably build sets. We kind of knew that. We were going to go on location for the most part and dress the sets, so you make them look like World War II. But you're not actually building them for people. You're not in a studio because that's a lot more cost, can be. So we were all set to go. And we had picked out Czech Republic, picked out our production company, and this was February of 2022. And that month, I believe it was either that month or very shortly or March, the Ukrainian war broke out. And Czech Republic canceled their film incentives. And we needed the film incentives. For people that don't know what that is, for every dollar you spend in a country, and we were spending a lot because you hire the locals, you're in hotels and you're bringing people that will use hotels and restaurants. And you hire the set designer, you hire a lot of local craftspeople, and Czech Republic has wonderful talent. And they give you back money when you spend $1, they give you back 20 cents. So you're getting 20% back, which goes into your budget, which means you can have a bigger budget. So they canceled that. So once again, we just grind to a halt, And once again, but by this time we were so used to these obstacles, we thought we must be doing something right. I don't think the enemy wants us to do this film. So that we just said, Lord, obviously we can't make this movie if we don't have a country to shoot in. And it took us about 4 or 5 months, maybe 6, and our wonderful producer in Hollywood, we have couple producers, but one of them in Hollywood, Ralph Winter, and Todd, our director. They got busy working, and Ralph found we shot in two different countries. It ended up being so Ralph found Belgium, and we shot in Belgium for the beautiful architecture that you see. You know, if you saw since you just saw the film, right? And then the wide open spaces, you know, where the buses drive. That was Ireland. We shot in
Wow.
Ireland. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had
What
many
an
obstacles.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, I was so excited to get time with you, just so excited because I know the investment required to do the project. And
Yeah.
I wanted to hear all of these stories because we see the beautiful film and we get to go be beneficiaries of all that hard work, but people don't realize, 12 years of investment and all the obstacles and what it's like to raise funds and how do you get this right? How do you have the right person write it? And I love that you were going to choose the Czech Republic. Our team is actually leaving on November 1st to go record a symphony project that we're working on, and we're using the Brno Philharmonic. And we've never done a project in the Czech Republic, but we're actually going there, and it's beautiful, and the people and the talent and the Philharmonic we chose.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Beautiful
fantastic.
country and beautiful people and talented. Yeah.
Well, on the beauty side, I was struck by not just the locations you chose, but the costumes. And I want to talk about lighting and costume in particular because I was really impressed. I was really impressed by the level of detail, the attention to detail. How do you select from, and how much from your chair as a producer were you hands-on curating those conversations? Because when I watched, somebody was thoughtful about the lighting and the story that's being told between light and dark. I mean, that was beautifully done. And
Beautiful.
then on the costume side, there's colors and there's textures that are coming through, and it was so well done. So I'm curious from your side how much you got to participate in those conversations and actually have your hands on those choices.
Well, you know, there are different kinds of producers. And so Todd, we sent him early on for pre-production, which was 3 months. Once we said we're going to go, we cast Jonas very quickly, and the lead, because you know Jonas Dassler is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And then after that, he didn't have a lot of time. So suddenly, what we would have liked would have been 3.5 months of pre-production to really do this, you know, really take our time. It was really quick, you know. So we were praying in each person, and it's very relational. And we wanted real craftsmen. We didn't want like our friends or someone who somebody knew. Or we went to agents. We wanted really great craftsmen, and a lot of this is relational. So Todd's been in Hollywood for years. He was calling friends, and Ralph was calling friends. Ralph Winter, the other producer, and our UK producers were, everyone had their feelers out for, and then all of a sudden we hear that John Matheson is free, and somebody knew him. John Matheson is an amazing director of photography. He is legend, and that is probably the most important person after the director. He did Gladiator, so everybody knows that movie, right? Now he
Mhm.
just did Gladiator too. So John read the script and liked the script, and had Gladiator 2 was postponed until later in the next year, and in 20 later 2023. And so he said, "Well, I need to talk to the director." So he went and talked to Todd, and they hit it off. And we were not involved in those conversations because this was a UK producer that found John Matheson. So that was fine. We had a DP, you know, which was amazing, and we had our director. And then he said, "Well, who is my set designer? Who am I going to be working with?" And when we said, "Well, actually, we're still looking for one," you know, we're feelers out everywhere. And Matheson said, "Oh my gosh, you're really late. You needed one like a month ago. You need someone really good and really fast." So he said, "Let me call a friend of mine." And this was fabulous because they had worked together. And so that communication, and he said, "John, are you doing it?" John said, "Yes." He said, "Send me the script," read it, loved it. And he said, "I'm in." And so you know, that was a lot of heavy lifting to get. That was the Lord just dropping these people in our lap. And then we had a hard time with the costumer. We had to find, you know, it was not easy. Costumers didn't want to come on board because there was no time, you know, so they knew. So what we finally found one who's just wonderful. And she met with Todd, and somebody had contacted her for us. And she said, there's no time to make costumes, so I'm going to have to rent them and then adjust them. And she did so much research. What you will find there's I don't know if you've seen any of the EPKs. Have you seen our EPKs?
Hmm.
There's one, which is, for those who don't know, it's an electronic press kit. So it's like your press packet, but today they do it in video and like a little film. In one of them, and I don't know if it's the one you saw, she explains that just the German soldier's uniform changes so much from 1935 to 1945. And so she did all that research, and you will see so many different kinds of uniforms, whether it's the black one or the, more um, uh, forest green one, it's or the khaki. It's amazing that the kind of research she did. So I think to answer your question, the movie is beautiful because we wanted to do the best we could for the Lord, for Bonhoeffer, and for our audiences. And so we were very fortunate to get really good craftsmen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you just said that, like, from the standpoint of somebody who's creating a piece of art, to say there's stakeholders involved and God is first. And so the highest and best we can give back, we're telling a story that he was intimately involved in, and points directly to him. So let's do that well. And then I love that you included Bonhoeffer, that there's a legacy there that
Yes.
is incredible. And to hold that up, not in a lesser form or a flat form, but to really present that character richly and hold out with excellence that story. And then the audience, it's so important. And this is what I care about so much, is someone making great art and
Yeah.
and putting back the investment and the resource to say. And I think it's even providential, the idea that the timing was delayed so that John was available. Some of those things we won't see, but had you not had the right director of photography, those shots would not have been. And for everybody who's going to see this film, it's beautiful. And when I say that, I mean, you'll be captivated by the story and the theology. But the beauty of this film is really, really something to enjoy, and it will leave a mark on you. And so, well done, well done. And before we run
Yeah.
a, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying that. We took very great care. Yes, first, to do something great for God. I was raised. I'm from an Italian family. I spent my early years in Rome, and I grew up in churches that were like museums. And we would go to the Vatican, to the Sistine Chapel. My mom would take us there, and she would explain. And the greatest craftsmen did those paintings in churches for God. And that was the thing that I thought, I don't want to do this unless we can do a great job. But then the other thing is, I really did not want to do an American film. I didn't want this to be an American version of a European Christian that lived in 1945. So our thought was always, we have to shoot in Europe, just the architecture, we have to have European actors. Originally, we were looking in England because they had, we wanted the theatrical gravitas that some British actors have often because they're theater trained. We didn't end up casting in England very much. We did, but all the German actors we started casting in Germany. We started finding such great actors, and we were working with such great agents that they just everyone, all the main characters are German. It was amazing. And so the only hitch I had about the British actors, and we had all agreed that we would get a coach, is that we did not want a German picture with everyone having a British accent. We wanted authenticity. So we thought, well, we'll have to get a coach, but many of these great actors also do many accents. So, but in the end, we got mostly German cast for the family, for Donani. Donani's an American. It's Flula Borg. He's a comedian, but he's from a German background, and as you probably know, he does a great German accent, and he's a great actor, even though he's never acts straight. He acts, funny, but I think we'll be seeing him do more theatrical things, dramatic things.
Yeah, I think so. It's so good. Like beauty draws you to good. And I think that when you see this film, you're going to immediately be struck by the beauty. But then at the center of it are these themes and threads that you are pulling on. And I'm sure there was so much source material that you had to block out and prune to make sure that your story was told well in the time constraints that you had. You had Metaxas's body of work. I'm curious what other source material really
Oh,
jumped out?
yeah, that's a good point. It's not based on Metaxas's book. That's what we started with in 2010. That was like what, that was for me, it was a very readable biography. But we went on to read a lot of things. Beth Gay, his best friend, wrote a book. It's not as readable as Metaxas's. It's 900 pages. Um, and then there was a book written which we read much later. And really what that did is it confirmed what we did. It's a book it's called Bonhoeffer's Black Jesus. It's about Harlem. And it didn't come out till 216, so we read it around 217 or so, but it kind of confirmed it was like our theological underpinning for what we had done in Harlem, because we had always had the premise that his life changed in Harlem. And then, 6 years later, this book comes out and validates our premise. And we read a lot of Bonhoeffer. We wanted to know the man. So, but it was always it was with the movie, you have to show, not tell. It's not a documentary. So you have to compress time. If he's in prison for 3 years, you're not going to have him in prison the whole movie. You have to also maybe marry a few things, like some of the writings, maybe marry them all together in one sermon or one speech, which is what we did. And pick and choose a lot. We had to pick and choose a lot we had to discard a lot. I mean, we had so many scripts that just about everything in his life is in one of those scripts. But then the final script, we just honed it down. I
Yeah.
remember the one thing I never thought we would throw out, but we did, is at the end of his life, he has a fiance, but it's at the very end, and it's Maria. They meet, and 2 or 3 months later, he's in prison. So their courtship is letters. And we it was too hard dramatically, because either you would have to bring her in early, which would not be true to the story, because she wasn't involved in all of his life. And even when she was brought in at the end, she was not, she wasn't privy to all the resistance stuff. He wouldn't have wanted to endanger her like that. So that was a tough one. So I remember Todd came and talked to us, and he said, my first question is, how do you solve a problem like Maria? Which made us all laugh because that's her name. And he decided, I just don't think I could put her in the script. And we were horrified, oh my gosh, Hollywood is going to want, not that we cared about Hollywood, but we are like, oh, we have to have a love interest. And Todd said, and since we had a love interest, we said, we're not making it up, we should have it. And Todd said, well, there will be a love interest. He's going to increasingly fall in love with God. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that sold us,
Yeah. No, it's amazing those little choices, and I think Harlem and your emphasis on that part of his life, and really traveling there to show that, to allow people to experience that was so important and impactful to me to watch. I think particularly for all of us who are downstream of the Enlightenment, kind of saturated, disembodied gospel, to then come face to face with like for him, that recalibration from kind of a propositional heady faith to an embodied around a table type without giving anything away. Just you really see his transformation taking place and how his theology is incarnating in his life, which will later on lead him to suffer, and because his faith isn't separated from his lived experience. And I think without that choice to kind of go into Harlem, we wouldn't see the development in the way that we did. So that was beautiful. It surprised me in the film. I loved that time that was spent in seeing that. So really, really well done. And that was impactful to me. I'm curious for you, as you navigated and marinated and just you get to know a character so well, is there an aspect of Bonhoeffer's life that maybe had a surprising impact on you? I mean, he's known at this level by so many of us, but getting so deep into his story and into his life, on the other side of this, is there a part of his life that maybe you look back and I wouldn't have thought so, but I won't be the same after getting to know him so well?
I think I'd have to say that he didn't have it all. No one, and that's what we hope to inspire people. We wanted to show the arc of the character. No Christian, starts their journey and has it all together, right? You deepen and grow as things happen in your life, challenges, obstacles, joys, tragedies, and the Lord walks you through them. One of the things that really impressed me about Bonhoeffer, as he gets resistance from his church, his friends, his colleagues, the government, the Nazis. His life kind of gets increasingly lonely. And his courage is just so impressive to me. But as he contemplated joining the resistance, it was his desire to always know the will of God and to struggle with it, because it's different for each person, right? God may call you to do something, but not me. So Bonhoeffer was wrestling with it. It wasn't a decision he made lightly. And we couldn't we put a little bit of that, but you can't really show a lot of that in a movie. But he really wrestled with, do you get involved in a plot to assassinate the head of state? This is a coup, right? One that isn't just replacing him, it's killing him. So what impressed me was how he thought that through, very deep thinker, even to the point of saying, yes, I will be taking guilt upon myself. And even to the point of saying it, if I have missed God, I will appeal to his mercy and to his grace.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know if I'll ever be faced with something like that. Certainly I know I've missed God, and I can appeal to, ask forgiveness, but that was impressive to me. And I don't know if you remember, when he's arrested. I don't know if should I say this, I might give too much away.
Yeah.
He
Hold it back, because those are some of the moments that I just was
okay,
like, yeah.
I won't say.
Yeah. Beautiful, though. I mean, you carry us right to those points where you watch this man stepping really into his theological convictions that he has wrestled through and worked through. And you can watch the way you've presented him. I was watching him literally choose to enter into those convictions. And it's really, really well done. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
It's so fun to hear ahead of time before people go see it, to hear the artistry and the investment and all of those. I text my wife today and obviously said, we're going to take our kids. And she said, is it appropriate? Can they see it? Because I told her I came away loving it as a piece of art and being impressed with the storytelling and the theology. And I thought so well done on so many levels, but I left with a good weightiness, right? And I think our moment requires that. I think that's what good art does. Buechner says, the artist's job is to call us to pay attention. And you've put some things in a frame for us to pay attention to with this film coming at this moment. So I think it's good for my kids to see it. So I'll circle back to who we want to come out for this, and maybe some of the audiences that we're hopeful that will come out. But for you, anti-Semitism, we're in the midst of that. We have church questions that we are wrestling with right now. For you, is there one or two things that you really thought were important, not just for their moment, but for our moment, that you hope this film kind of frames and invites us as an audience to have good conversation about?
Well, we started this in 2012. So we weren't thinking about today, obviously we weren't thinking about, but back in 2012, we were concerned. We travel a lot. We go to a lot of great churches when we travel. And we were concerned that the American church was just not as vibrant as places where people suffer or don't have as much money or don't have as much in the way of real estate, churches that have, cafes. And I don't denigrate that, but I'm saying what we noticed is that the American church, with all that it had, to whom much is given, much is required, could be so much more vibrant. So the first thing was to do really what Bonhoeffer was doing. He was calling the church back to their first love. And he was saying later in prison, he later said, what we need is religionless Christianity, meaning real Christianity without the trappings of what religion can give you. Now, the trappings are great if they're the icing on the cake, but if that's all there is. So the first thing for us was calling people, could we have like a small part? And we did think, just a small part in doing our little bit to call the church back to being, if they weren't, back to being really fervent for God. And then individually, we thought, this man is such a role model, and he faced such monstrous evil. And I don't know that we'll ever face that. Maybe we will. We don't know. Um, would we be as prepared? Would we be as brave? And would we be as Christocentric? He gets increasingly Christ-centered. So we thought that would be a great role model back then in 2012, for young people, for college kids, because he was so young when he started on this outspokenness, and he was so bright, and he was a great pianist too. So he was well-rounded. He's a great athlete. And we showed that in the film. We wanted to show that he played soccer, that he, was athletic. And so those things back then are what, and then we thought, what a great movie for people who have not started on a journey towards God, who don't know God. We're not making up a film. It's not a Christian film that is original when we wrote it. This is an historical figure. His statue is at Westminster Abbey on the Wall of Martyrs. And it might inspire people who don't know God at all to delve into, to go further in their study of Bonhoeffer and go on the same journey. So we were thinking it's for the secular world, it's for the Christian individual, young, old, American, non-American, and it's for the church. And then, believe it or not, this was really alarming to us. We were beginning to see a rise in anti-Semitism in Europe. We were seeing it in France. We were seeing it, starting in different countries, Hungary, but France especially in 2012. We were reading articles that Jews were leaving France. We're thinking, really? And of course, there was a element of a radical Islamic fundamentalist population growing in France. Not large, but they were attacking Jews. So we thought, wow, what this is an added benefit. We would be doing a story about the same prophet speaking the same message to the same continent, So for today, and then of course here we are, and it's on our college campuses, which is so sad. It's to think that
Yeah.
Jews are in danger in America is never could we have imagined that.
It's, I think, to touch back to recent history and to film again allows us to feel something because you're showing it, not just telling it with prose or something, but you get to see it and feel the hatred of another person and how that can be systematically carried out at such an incredibly evil level. And you go, never, never, never again. And yet that's not that long ago in history. And the seeds and the way we see another person, the language we use, I think it's a great cautionary tale. This is the benefit of history. And to be able to come out and say, this isn't a fictional story. This is not in our too distant past. And on both sides, right? Be careful and be watchful of these things. And here's what's required of people who have a different vision of human dignity. And sometimes that will call you to stand up for your neighbor in a way that's really costly. And I think some of those moments where he says, I didn't speak up here, and here's the cost of not doing that. I think you've done a great service too, in addition to just making a great film. And maybe those always should be hand in hand. That's great art. But I know my kids will see it from a producer side. I don't know about your family and if you have kids and, family impact and how you thought through that. But would you encourage families to come see it? I have a 10-year-old.
Oh my
I think
gosh.
my 10-year-old can see it. What do you think from a
Okay,
producer
I'm glad you
standpoint?
asked that question, because one of the things that I ache for with this next generation is they are too much alone on their phone, on their on their iPad, on their computer. And this is how they enjoy entertainment, movies, whatever. And I come from, a world growing up where you experienced a movie in community and you got something from that shared experience, and you walked out changed. When I moved to New York to be an actress, I went to see everything on Broadway, and I remember when I saw Les Miserables, I was changed forever. I mean, you see the poverty, you see the depravity of man, and you see the glory and I mean the greatness of Jean Valjean who gives his life, and I was weeping. I think I cried five. I've seen that, and I'm gonna go back over and everyone that came to New York. I said, let me take you to Les Mis. So we want people to go. I mean, sure, I hope people see it on the streaming networks forever, it becomes a classic, but we want people to see it in the theaters. And unfortunately, they don't last in theaters if people don't go, especially that first weekend. So we want families to enjoy it together because in the theater, it's going to be different. The sound will be different. The music, the underscoring will be different. I mean, we're watching it now. We're seeing it now. When we take screeners and watch them and we see a screening in a theater. So yes, I think I know our friend just saw a screener with an 11-year-old, and the 11-year-old loved it. I know 12 and up, it's perfect for them. I think under 12, you would have to decide if you're a 10-year-old or 11-year-old is is mature enough. It's really the subject matter because we don't really show the horrors of the war or the Holocaust, and so it's really the subject matter. And we wanted to be very authentic. And Dietrich smoked cigarettes, so we show him smoking, and that will just about get you. I'm pretty sure that gets you a PG in Hollywood. If yeah, but I mean, compared to the things that children are seeing today,
Yeah.
smoking is the worst. That's okay.
I'm so glad that you talked about it. Film as an immersive experience and having an engagement through a digital medium. We that still can be done in a way that is really rich and immersive. And I'm really glad you pointed that out. I hope everybody will go see this in the theater and that you will participate in this incredible opportunity to bring people back out and to engage film, right? We maybe won't all have access to Broadway, but let's go see a really, really thoughtful and beautifully done film. And then I would encourage you to plan dinner on the backside or go out for a good conversation over something that you enjoy so that you can have a good dialogue about it, because it's so thoughtful that you will leave with questions about faith and thoughtfulness about the church and culture. And so, Camille, thank you for giving us that opportunity. It's what great artists do, and you've created something really, really, really beautiful. So we're in your debt. I will put all the links. Riley, we're going to put all the links for how you can get tickets. November 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, is the release date.
And Zach, churches can go. I mean, to your point of doing community things, churches can go. And I think on Angel Studios, they have great discounts. I think you have to buy 10 at a time. That's the only bad part. But our friend she is taking 100 people from her church and home groups. I know a home group that's taking a ladies' home group. I mean, I think when you said, go in a group and talk about it afterwards, I think that will be a rich experience. So we hope churches will do that, take advantage of, doing a communal thing. Yeah.
Yeah. What a brilliant gift too, right? Like the church is the church, and we have our great book and source material, but should be the center point, right? Like if the church doesn't speak up and create this tension with government, who will do it? And I love there's a line where you say the church should speak first. And I think that to bring some of that rigor back, this is what great art does, right? Like there's people making tremendous investment financially to create this piece of art. And now a church can take and use this to have a conversation. And you talked about early on pastors in the public square. this is an incredible piece of art that you can sit down and talk about the personal conviction of faith. What does our theology say? How about the public square, and all of it? So thank you so much. And what a joy to talk to you. You're brilliant and thoughtful, and I can see the performance artist side and the producer side. God's gifted you on both of those. So Camille, thank you for the time. Congrats on the film, and everybody go see Bonhoeffer. This is an incredibly beautiful film. We'll put all the links in, share it, and let's really do a great job showing our side too, right? If we want great poets, we need to be better audiences. And so if we want great art, let's be an audience that engages it and leans in and honor the film in that way. So Camille, thanks for sharing some time. I
Oh, thank
appreciate
you
it.
for having me. It's been really a lovely discussion. You asked great questions and you had great insights. Thank you.
Well, take care and congrats again. We're grateful.